We're always looking forward, always looking at the stars and the people in our offices or on the field who are doing the remarkable things and participating in the big moments. But that's not the real leader.
Yep. And it's interesting that you mention defense versus offense because, offensive play is the what people pay attention to, and it's what they think also in the workplace what drives a business forward. The forward momentum is growth, and it's strategic planning for acquisition or for new product development or all of the sort of more glamorous things. Whereas there needs to be somebody who's kind of playing defense, who's anticipating downturns in the market, who's looking at cost cutting. And those are the very unglamorous jobs that a lot of times we think of as being middle management. But it's, one of the people you mention in your book is Bill Russell. So the Boston Celtics, right? Like he wasn't Will Chamberlain, right? He was more focused on defense instead of offense, and he really had this sort of big picture view of what was going to be good for the team, and then whatever was going to be good for the team, he stepped into that role, and in this case, it was often defense. So, what would you say to somebody who is running a business who knows who their obvious A players are, but are sort of looking to find their defensive players, are looking to find the people that are going to use the nonverbal communication, who have that emotional self-control, who can be relentless even under pressure? What are some of the ways that you can try to identify those people?
Well, there's a very seductive idea out there that an organization works better when it's flat, that it's good to get rid of middle management and to create an environment where the founders and executives of the company talk more directly to the star talent, the people who are actually doing the big tasks that really drive growth. So middle management is even more passe than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. But my advice to people is, here's the thing about leadership. And what I discovered on these teams and what I've seen in business as I've traveled around and talked to people is that in good times, when you're growing, when the curve is going skyward, you don't really see leadership. In fact, it's not really that important because everything's working. Everything seems to be going well. When you need leadership is when things go wrong. When the curve flattens or even drops. That's when you need these people, because there's a tendency of executives and even coaches in sports to overfunction when things start to go bad. They start trying all the kinds of things and new theories and strategies. On the other side, you have star talent, and they start looking at their resumes and thinking, I don't know, is this going to work out? Mm-hmm. What you need in the middle and what you have to look for are those people who do not care about their own individual accomplishments. They may not be flashy. They're not the first person that you want to trot out as the face of your company. But what they do is that they care more about the collective. That's what their ego is based on. They rise and fall with the fortunes of the group. And they can be prickly. They push back when they think something's not going to work that they're being asked to do. But what they do is they understand both sides. They understand what management wants. They understand what the employees or the team is capable of. And they're able to have to execute by taking the best of both sides and coming up with an alternative that works. You have to find these people and you have to give them power. You have to enter a sort of partnership with them to allow them to do their work, but also give them the autonomy to make adjustments. And I found time and time again, that's really the meat of my book. I look for those moments when Bill Russell and the Celtics were on the ropes. When all these great dynasties almost lost it or almost never became dynasties. Those are the moments I looked for. And every single one of those moments, that's where you see leadership. That's where Bill Russell did something called the Coleman play, which is one of the most famous defensive efforts in NBA history. He missed a dunk in the final seconds of Game 7 of the NBA Finals in his rookie year. And the St. Louis Hawks, who they were playing, inbounded the ball to midcourt. And their forward, Jack Coleman, had an easy look at the basket to make a simple layup. And no one in the building thought anything else could possibly happen other than him scoring 2 points. But right as the ball left his fingertips, this blur appeared behind him and swatted the ball away. What Russell did was incredible. There's no video of this, sadly, so it's all in descriptions. He's starting under his own basket. He was 96 feet away from the other basket. The guy with the ball caught it at a gallop at midcourt about half the distance. Russell somehow managed to cover the entire length of the floor in the same time it took Coleman to get to the basket, and he swatted the ball away. It was this incredible thing. No one saw it coming. No one could believe it happened. But what it showed me was that Russell understood this was a moment where this was either going to become a great team or it wasn't. And he took it upon himself to do something no one else would have even thought to try, in order to try to preserve that, to allow it to happen. That's leadership. And that's when you see it. You don't see it when your fourth quarter earnings exceed expectations. You see it when things are bad. You need someone in the middle who's going to hold the organization together, who's going to provide that continuity, who's thinking about the goals of the group and not their own. And these are what these leaders were. Half the time you don't notice them. Most of the time you don't notice them or even know who they are until you need them. And then if you don't have them, it's over. That's it.
Yeah. And you mentioned in the book also that great leaders are like the verb in a sentence, right? So a lot of times you don't notice the verb, but the verb is what connects the entire sentence together. It's what gives it motion. But the adjectives and the subject, all the other words get a little bit more attention. But if you didn't have the verb, it wouldn't exist. It sounds like that's exactly what these people would be.
Yeah, no, it's a very dorky writer analogy, but it's the best I could do, and I think it's true because, the only thing that a sentence has to have in order to provide that forward motion is that verb. It's that action word. It's that word that creates the momentum and holds everything together, and that's exactly the role. I mean, you won't necessarily notice these people. In fact, they don't want to be noticed. All of these great captains that I studied on these elite dynasties all over the world were exactly the same, and they all hated attention. They would get visibly uncomfortable when they were praised in public. Bill Russell turned down the Hall of Fame. He didn't want to be part of it because he didn't want to be part of an institution that was celebrating an individual as opposed to the entire unit. Time and time again, they did things like this. They turned down awards. They stayed out of the public eye. They let their teammates bask in the glory while they stayed behind. My favorite example of this is Carla Overbeck, who was a member of the 1999 U.S. women's team that won the World Cup, this famous team. Now, you've probably never heard of Carla Overbeck. You've heard of Mia Hamm. You've probably heard of Julie Foudy and Brandi Chastain.
Mm-hmm.
That team was
Yep.
full of these incredible superstars and great athletes and great talents. Carla Overbeck was the captain of this team, and she wanted nothing to do with the publicity. In fact, after they won the World Cup, she flew home. All of her teammates went to Midtown Manhattan for this huge rally. They went on Letterman. They were the toast of the town. She wanted no part of it. She went home, and I asked her what she was doing the day that all of her teammates were taking their victory parade.